Yeah, Jeff Bleich, we talk about
Karen.
the 7 battleground states. Yeah, great to see you. A big day. It's been such an epic campaign, but I want to get your thoughts or analysis on the 7 battleground states. Maybe we throw in Iowa into that as well. Do you see a scenario where, I know it's close, but where they all go one way as opposed to the other, where they all are won by one of the candidates, so the Electoral College doesn't end up as close as many might suspect or fear?
Yeah, I think that's a viable scenario. In fact, in some ways, it may be the most likely scenario, because these elections tend to have a through line in them. And in this case, one of the big questions is going to be a female turnout, and whether women, particularly traditionally Republican voting women, turn out for Kamala Harris. If they do that in numbers, then you're likely to see a movement all in one direction. And if they don't, you're likely to see a movement all in the other direction. I'd say the third most likely scenario would be kind of a split, where you have, for example, the blue wall states going Kamala Harris's way, and the Sun Belt, Rust Belt, states going more in the in Donald Trump's direction, in which case you would eke out a narrow victory. But really, honestly, anyone who tells you what's going to happen tonight is lying. No one knows, even the most sophisticated analysts.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I heard one of your colleagues, someone you know well, David Plouffe, just in the last 24 hours, quite optimistic though. It's very interesting. He's a very understated person. He's a senior advisor to Harris. But where would that optimism come from, in your view, in the final days?
I think his optimism is coming from two things. One is Kamala Harris's closing argument was very much disciplined, and she had a positive, optimistic message for America and a clear contrast. I think Donald Trump's message, which was articulated initially as a very clear message, was garbled by the fact that he kept going off script, and every time he talked about, Arnold Palmer, or about Liz Cheney facing 9 gun barrels trained on her face, or attacking journalists, because I happen to love journalists. Whenever those things happened, it took them off message and kind of made the case for Kamala Harris. So that's one thing that's given him some confidence, because we're seeing that in the polls, and we're seeing that in canvassing. The other is where the undecided voters are going, and right now there is a break, probably a 10-point or higher break in favor of Kamala Harris. The question is, will that be enough to compensate for other places where she's losing votes? But I think David Plouffe is good at this, and those would be the sources of his optimism.
Yeah, well, great to chat to you. Thanks for making the time to chat to Annalise.